Hey, it's Chris. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about games that are arriving from crowdfunding in 2025. Games that are arriving. Games that we think that are arriving in 2025. And how do we feel about them? And are you going to be as happy having it in your hands as you were about clicking and dopamine buying it when it campaign and funded? That's going to be the question. And which of these aren't going to be in 2025? Because there are some big names that I would love to talk about to hype up to you to get you to click on this video and click through it even more. But some of those games, folks, aren't going to be in 2025. Go on board. No Cyberpunk probably this year. Lands of Evershade, ain't no way in hell. So things like that, not going to be coming to your table anytime soon. Are we still going to talk about the stuff that is? Oh yeah. You like this? Buckle up, sign up, subscribe, hit the thumb button to tell other people about it and that you're watching it. And the Liege games is freaking awesome. And you know what? I have a Patreon down below because, again, no FOMO. Help you save money. Buy stuff that's only right for you. Okay, let's go. First up, right? Marvel United Multiverse. So that is going to be one of my top 2 upcoming arriving games in 2025 because I still don't freaking have them. Okay, that aside, right? Nemesis Retaliation, Awakened Realms. Show me what you got. Also, on the upcoming campaigns for 2025, I said I'd be shocked if we don't see a reiteration sometime of one of the other IP properties. So are we going to see, similar to the Zombicides, are we going to see another, Nemesis at the end of 2025 after this one is delivered, hot on the heels, playing off the FOMO and the hype of things? Folks, if you don't think there's going to be another Nemesis game, I have some bad news for you. Or some good news if you actually want another Nemesis game. This is raising them like 8 digits worth of money after the pledge manager, folks. You would be ludicrous to not go back to it and milk it for everything it's worth. Why do you think we have 12 iterations of Zombicide? I'm making that number up. I'm not actually sure what number it is, but you know what I'm saying. So, right? Is Retaliation going to be the one that you want? Is the noise mechanic, is the oxygen mechanic, those differences, the shoot 'em up more than the, sort of survival-esque going to be your vibe? Right? You're going to get plenty of content that you won't open and use, and you'll sell. But it's going to be the one for you. I know it's going to fill that spot. So regardless, I want it. Right? I think it's going to be in demand. I think it's going to be more in demand, but with like some of these, you're better off just buying off someone else's pledge that didn't open it and is trying to resell it like I'm trying to do with a bunch of games right now. So then, I'm taking shots at myself before I'm taking shots at anyone else, right? As always, Dice Throne Outcasts. You know what? I think Dice Throne Outcasts is going to be there by the end of the year. I would not include the next one in this list, but I'll mention it either way. But Dice Throne Outcasts, I believe, is going to be there. And I would argue that this is the poster child for me of things that I'm going to pick up at retail rather than crowdfunding. I don't need the foils. I don't need the slight deluxeification. And price point, we'll see, right? It's a coin flip. I said it during the campaign. Coin flip of whether or not you're going to get it in the campaign and save bucks, or, arguably, I guess, unless you were getting all the deluxeifications to go along with it and you just want the gameplay like I do. I don't really need the promos that you can't use in tournaments anyway. And not like I do tournaments, but just the one extra card for each character, it's fine. Don't need it. And so I'm happy to coin flip there and bundle it in with some other retail buying spree that I inevitably screw up because I buy games at retail that I don't actually end up liking and end up getting rid of. See my look back a year ago of games I bought and didn't do well with. Some of them are still in my collection, some of them are. Anyway, but I like this Outcast set better than anything that's out with Season 1 and Season 2. So I think mechanics are going to be unique. I think it's going to be awesome. And I think that's why it's this high on this list. And then the one I was alluding to a minute ago was Root, right? The Homeland expansion. I'm going to, seriously think about late pledging this over on GameFound. And I just can't see this actually being delivered in 2025 because I think the delivery date right now was estimated, I think on the campaign page, like November 2025. With all the playtesting that goes on with 3 factions, say what you want about a lot of other crowdfunding campaigns, a lot of other companies that come to crowdfunding, and, the QA and the errata. Don't see as much of that because Leader really puts this to the grindstone, both in external and internal playtesting. And so I think, from a positive standpoint, that it's just not going to come out in 2025. So I would include it otherwise on this list, and it would be right here above a lot of these other things. And speaking of Awakened Realms, though, going back to them for a second, Grimcoven. Oh, well, Grimcoven should have been number 2, right? But no, you're not going to get Grimcoven this year. You're smoking something else, you know, if you think Grimcoven's going to be before, you know, mid-2026 at this point. I love it. I love the idea of it. I think the potential is absolutely massive, but I don't think they know what they're doing design-wise, mechanically, and they've got so many other pokers in the fire that, you know what, it's going to get the attention, and it's going to be fine whenever you get your copy, but it's not going to be until 2026, so don't kid yourself on that one. Then, the more recently ended, but still hopefully optimistic, which again, I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets shunted to 2026, but I'll give them the estimation date right now as a truth, and that's Orange Nebula and Vestige, right? Vindication 2.0. Vindication in space, Vindication streamlined, Vindication better, I don't know. Vindication adjacent, if you will, 1.3579. If you watched my unpopular opinions video where I talked about the importance of significant digits in board game ratings, that was an allusion to that, folks. But what I'm saying is, I think this could be really something special. I think this could be one of the best Euros of 2025. I think it's going to be one of those things where I think at this point, you're almost better off timing your delivery for the end of 2025 or the end of the year in general if you want to get hyped. Because, I mean, I think we're seeing that with the games that sort of here at the end of 2024, the best of 2024's meta collection. I think you're seeing less games overall in terms of Slay the Spire and Harmonies because they were way early in the year. It's controversial, but I'll make the argument that you're seeing propensity for games that skew the other way, even things like Primal. Not because, again, it was not well thought of, but it's a Johnny, what have you done for me come lately sort of situation. And games that come in the last quarter, well, you can't be too late, though, because people put stuff out in November or the very 1st of December, because you don't actually need to play games in December. December's not actually considered part of the year. Tongue-in-cheek, but I'm serious, right? That's why my video for Best of 2024 doesn't come out, because I'm literally playing games for 2024 up until the last literal day or days of the year, trying to figure out if I still have them, and I still don't even have all the games for 2024 that I would want to include on my list to see the beginning of this video, that it would probably make that list in the first place. So Vestige, probably going to be good time-wise, and pre-production copies will be shot out to people so that you can get the hype drove up. But I love what they're offering, and I think this looked great, but I didn't see, as a non-deluxified person looking at this, a reason to get it on crowdfunding, so I think it's going to be great at retail as well. Then I'm waiting to see, because very sparse details, very few knowledgeable information anywhere in that way, is that it's Regicide, right? Regicide Legacy. I love Regicide. Regicide is on my top 25 list of cooperative games of all time. And I think that this could be really something special. And if you are a longtime subscriber or a watcher of my channel, you know that I am not the biggest fan of legacy games in general. And I'm also not a big fan of legacy games on crowdfunding. Not because I think they're going to be bad, but because I think with crowdfunding's mask of what is going on behind the scenes, Wizard of Oz style-ish, it's hard to tell sometimes with clarity which ones are going to be the ones that are good and which ones are going to be the ones that really freaking aren't. And with the regular games, it's hard to tell sometimes. And with legacy games, it's even more hard because you can't even spoiler it. You can't even give a full rulebook. You can't give some of that stuff. And so you kind of got to put your Hopium in their box and gently give it to them and go, please, sir, can I have some more good stuff? And that's what you're wondering with this. But I trust Badgers from Mars to do a good job with this. And so I really hope this freaking blows it out of the water. And that's why it is on this list from that aspect of things. Then we have to go back to other people with awesome pedigrees, and that's Odalin from Dragori Games. Tenares, I trust them with Tenares to do an amazing job with this. And if you're giving me Odalin, which is more of your roguelike, whichever one it is, I always mess up and convolute the two. But that with a sort of balanced lightness and darkness situation where you're summoning demons, okay, sign me up. Sort of a Tales of Arabian dark style of vibe thematically. And I just worry about just overarching, this is going to be too much rules and errata to get to the table. That's my fear, similar with Awakened Realms. I don't worry about the stuff that you're getting. I don't worry about the quality of the stuff you're getting. I just worry about the scope, the creep, the errata, the confusion, or just the clarity that needs to be with it to make it as streamlined as possible when I've got 37 of these other games vying for my same type of mechanic incorporation, lifestyle, whatever else you want to throw adjective wise with the dungeon crawl campaign ish stuff. So is Odalin going to succeed? I'd say yeah. Going back to the beginning though, I completely forgot to talk about Fear of the Unknown. Fear of the Unknown. I love Cthulhu Death May Die. I want more Cthulhu Death May Die. So there will be like confetti raining down during the video and me crying and weeping and I don't know whatever else I've done. Okay, next game. Luthier from Paverson Games. It's a little bit heavier than probably I realistically can get played on a regular basis. But I think if you're looking for just incredibly solid, you know what you're getting, you know it's going to be just maybe not the highest of ceilings, but you know that the basement is super high as well. I think this one has it all in spades. I think this is going to be like the 2024 equivalent of what Unconscious Mind was for a lot of people. It may not be fully for you, but it's going to be incredibly solid. Similar to Distilled in the Euro sense, but more with a worker placement. So I have very little doubts that this is going to be a solid game for a ton of people. People are going to love this. It's going to be more, slightly, I think, a notch down from like your Eagle Griffin Lacerdas, but it's going to be a little bit more than, say, your Unconscious Minds, if that's a good range. I'm not great at worker placement comparison, so take that for what you will. Then one that really caught my eye, and it's actually sitting right here in this stack next to me right now because I traded for it earlier in the year, and it was on one of my videos that I just talked about games that you should be really looking at and be interested in if you like stuff like I like. Tir na Nog. The Tir na Nog expansions I am excited about from Grand Gamers Guild coming because this tableau sort of pseudo worker placement, gather and create your little number lines and manipulations with the cards. The only thing I didn't really like is the duplicative of the card powers in some of them and not having enough of them in general. And so this expansion gives me more of that. I'm all for it. I love the 3-row system that you're doing. I love the worker placement. Put it down on the edges of the cards and get one or the other depending on your dynamics and how other people are interacting with the board in general. It's smooth, it's streamlined, it plays well at 2, 3, and 4, and I can't give it enough compliments from that aspect, so I just want to see more and more and more. So then we have to go to another complete dark horse from 2024. And, I wasn't expecting to like this. Again, if you know my channel, if you hear me talk about mechanics I'm a big fan of and ones that I tend to shy away from or rather gun shy about in general, it's area control. I am very peculiar, we'll say, on my area control. And I think Shadow Moon Syndicate absolutely looks utterly fantastic dynamically. And I think it's going to offer all of those things that I was talking about before. It's going to be streamlined. The rules are going to be much less than what you're having in the equivalency of a lot of its contemporaries. And I think the dynamics are going to be played out in how you manipulate the stuff that's in front of you, how you play the other players, as well as it's just going to be a very aggressive take that quick play in the actual physical mechanics of a turn-by-turn basis, which is not always the case and very AP prone in some of these other games. And again, some of you like the AP proneness of some of these games where you can out-strategize your opponents with these mechanics in terms of the manipulation. But I think this screams more tactical as well, which is, boom, what I got in front of me, I didn't know what it was going to be until the person before me went, and I am making the best applesauce out of rotten apples that I can right now, and boom shakalaka, old NBA Jam reference there. I just nailed you to the wall because, boom, I played the best thing I could right there, and it was completely unexpected by you. Faction-based, asymmetric. I like what they've got going on. The other big question mark for me of ones that I think could be a real potential dark horse, Horrible Guild and their reiteration of Railroad Inc. into a tile-based game. I think this could be something absolutely great as a person who loves tile laying, but I looked at the crowdfunding campaign and said, you are offering me like 37 different expansions. 37 is kind of like my go-to makeup number whenever I talk about things like this, hyperbole-wise. And so I just can't tell which of these expansions are going to be good. I can't tell which of the dynamics are going to be more to suited my taste. And I can't tell, and so I'd rather not buy them all and have to sort it out later. I'd rather save my money and kind of piecemeal it or trade for it later. But it has those items and those thoughts behind it in terms of the manipulation and the tile laying, that it's kind of what I just enjoy in general of that nature. And so you're giving me tons of modularity that I can mess around with, and I love the idea behind that as well. Speaking of modularity, though, I would be amiss if I didn't speak of the other dark horse in the form of nature. Blessing Curse, I don't really like the aspect that they said we're not going to make the retail expansions available for like 6 months. But I think this as a modular system that they are showing, North Star Games is saying we're going to support it no matter what. We've got plans basically like for almost a decade down the line. I think they said maybe only 5 years. I'm making this up as I go. But I think that's what they said previously. I think that's really impressive. And it shows that you're going to get the support you want out of a game you may love. And so the modular nature of the adaptation, evolution of evolution is really something that I think is going to fly under the radar for folks like me who are looking for a little bit lighter weight, not super heavy, under an hour style card-driven modularity game. We'll stay here with the other ones that I think are going to exceed expectations and be dark horses as well. Shut Up and Sit Down talked about this one. And I actually have to do a mea culpa because somehow of the hundreds and hundreds of games I covered this past year on the crowdfunding, I somehow missed it. It completely flew under the radar. I actually only came across it because Thinker Themer did a video on it. And I saw this and I said, holy cow, where is this? How was this? I found it in the last 36 hours of the campaign, and this was Eternal Decks. And it's sort of a deck building-esque defeat rows, asymmetric, like monster-esque. Add the cards to your deck and create this card, driven tableau that needs to be very specific criteria in how you're matching them up to get more cards, because otherwise you're going to run out of cards to fill all of the rows. And it's just a completely and utterly cleverly amazing cooperative game. And I backed it. And so it was really surprising when Shut Up and Sit Down all of a sudden made it blow up and get on the hotness. And I said, holy cow, I backed that game. And I'm really excited because it looks like something that is just absolutely going to be a fit for me. Is it going to be a fit for everyone? Probably not. But for me, absolutely. And so I'm really excited. And that's supposed to be delivering, I'd say probably Q3 of 2025 if I had to guess at this point. And then we'll talk about it because I'm a simp for level 99 games. I still am a firm believer of Spooktacular as you're moving across, haunting tons of different asymmetric little monsters as you're trying to gather up your spirits and your people in order to, score the most points. This is just Liege games, play with the kids, play with the family, play with the game group, written all over it. And again, it was sort of I don't need the extra accoutrements, but I want to get it and I want it to end up in my collection regardless. And so with a lot of their stuff, I am going to have it in my collection because I think it's going to offer something in that lighter weight range of things that I am absolutely in love with and that gets the most played. And you know what? Let's be frank here. What's the most important? Whether or not it gets played. And what works for you is also what's most important, not what other people say is awesome if you can't get it played, right? Always remember that. Then we're actually going to talk about another one that I just kind of, went halvesies on. Madcala from Druid City Games. With the recent success of Tidal Blades 2, I think that their stuff is very solid as well across the board. But is this going to be enough of a difference from a two-player asymmetric Madcala version of Wonderland's War, if you will? I'm making the comparison. The mechanics are completely different because you're using that as you go around to trigger your abilities. Again, I look at this as sort of like an unmatched or a dice throne that you could just incorporate a bunch of stuff with. And I said it during the campaign, I'll say it now. If this does bonkers, or even if it doesn't do bonkers, but it's really well received, I guarantee, just like I said with Nemesis, you will see more. And you might poo-poo the $235,000 that they raised, but it's a two-player asymmetric dueler getting $235,000. That is a lot of money for something without heavy miniatures or a huge backing swell already of people. That's more, I believe, than what Dice Throne raised its first time on crowdfunding comparison-wise. So again, keep it on your radar if you're a two-player game lover dueling in that style. And I have to wonder as well, with Santorini, the Pantheon edition, the cooperative edition, the puzzle edition, I'm not always a big fan of remaking games that don't need to be remade, right? Doesn't really need a new edition. At the same time, you're streamlining some of the powers. Some of them were clearly not well balanced in the base game. power creep all over the place, and you're giving the cooperative mode. I just worry that the cooperative mode is not going to be more than a pure puzzle. I am not a fan of pure puzzles, right? I've said this previously elsewhere, Cloudspire, City of Kings, where there is really one way to win. I think that's some people's very much style of things. And I know people that love that. You guys let me know in the comment section every time. But I'm looking at this and going, if you allow me to adapt to the circumstances and not just make me try and win one specific way, I'm all for it. Which is it going to be though? Because it's sort of this linked together thing and sort of puzzle, they didn't really show a whole lot. And so I think this has kind of high ceiling, lower basement for me. Is it on my wish list? Yeah, it is. Totally. You know, speaking of things that are on my wish list though, as well, right here, Leviathan Wilds. I just want more content. I love that game. Fantastic game. Again, a little bit of a what have you done for me lately on the 2024 list because it was earlier out in the year, which is why I think it didn't get the attention that it deserved. So, I mean, more stuff is going to be more awesomeness, and I'm all for that. Then Amoebunnies. Amoeba Bunnies, combination of those two words, right? Completely indie, under the radar game, 2025, sort of a root light-ish, only with little, basically small asymmetric powers and amoeba blobs. So again, under the radar, Dark Horse, absolutely looks fantastic. I think that's going to be very interesting. And then Bad Comet Games. I just talked about Wondrous Creatures recently. Life of Amazonia is a smashing success as well. And we're going to see, because they're going into the abstract Cascadia Calico style of things, really, I guess probably more Calico, with Shallow Sea. And I think this could be arguably best of any of those fit-wise for me as an abstract lover, with the manipulation of both of the aspects that you're putting down on a turn-by-turn basis, like your fish, I believe, and then the coral parts of things and matching and manipulating. I think that is going to be something that is going to surprise a ton of people. Few others here at the end. Wroth, I think, is going to be a very interesting case study from Chip Theory, going a completely different direction as an area control style with some slight asymmetry. If this truly stays under an hour and it truly is as streamlined as it looks on the campaign, it's another area control that I would really be interested in, right? Just like with Shadow Moon Syndicates, you know, give me the depth of gameplay, not the depth of rulebook or box. And so if you can scale it back, restraint being the key word, which not many companies on crowdfunding are as good at as we would maybe prefer, especially when it affects then the budget and the price point. So will they do that? I think Manny Tremblay can do that for sure. And I kind of want to see how this is going to combine from that style. Then also from Scott Alms as a 2-player, I think the So You've Been Cursed could be very interesting, trying to go essentially up against a wizard versus a monster, and then having to use the same token as the piece, or the piece that is deciding where you are at on the board for both players, depending on whose turn it is. I don't really like the player count of 0. I think that's kind of stupid. I understand. I'm also not looking at it from a solo side of things, but as an asymmetric style of that, similar to maybe, say, the heaviness of a kelp, if you will. I look at it very similarly with some overlap there. So I think that one could be a high risk, high reward one as well. There you go. Those are my games arriving 2025. Plenty of stuff that I don't think is going to arrive in 2025 that I maybe could have thrown on this list, like I said at the beginning. But let me know. What are you excited about? What do you want to see? What do you want to have hit the table? And, you know, again, it's sometimes until you have it in hand, how do you really feel? Because I've gotten plenty of stuff that I've been super hyped about. And then the second I got it and started opening it up, I was like, oh, well, never mind. Oh, completely balloon deflated. So let me know. Hopefully it's as good as for you as it is for me. That's all I got. Stay classy. Peace out. 2024, frankly speaking, though, was a really freaking good year for gaming. I don't care what anyone else says. Really, really an amazing ton of good games, almost across the mechanics and what you prefer regardless. So there you go.